morning. On behalf of our night staff and student body, it is my pleasure as principal of East Noble High School to welcome our honored guests to the 2014 Veterans Day Appreciation Ceremony. I would like to read a portion of the proclamation for this day, written by our Commander-in-Chief. Since the birth of our nation, American patriots have stepped forward to serve our country and defend our way of life. With honor and distinction, generations of servicemen and women have taken up arms to win our independence, preserve our union, and secure our freedom. From the Minutemen to our post-9/11 generation, these heroes have put their lives on the line so that we might live in a world that is safer, freer, and more just. And we owe them a profound debt of gratitude. On Veterans Day, we salute the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who have rendered the highest service any American can offer, and rededicate ourselves to fulfilling our commitment to all those who serve in our name. Today, we are reminded of our solemn obligation to serve our veterans as well as they have served us. As a nation, we must ensure that every veteran has a chance to share in the opportunity he or she is helped to defend. Those who have served in our armed forces have the expertise, skills, and dedication necessary to achieve success as members of our civilian workforce, and it is critical that we harness their talent. Across our country, veterans who fought to protect our democracy around the globe are strengthening here at home. Once leaders in the armed forces, they are now pioneers of industry and pillars in their communities. Their character reflects our enduring American spirit, and in their example, we find inspiration and strength. This day and every day, we pay tribute to America's sons and daughters who have answered our country's call. We recognize the sacrifice of those who have been part of the finest fighting force the world has ever known, and the loved ones who stand beside them. We will never forget the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice, and all those who have not yet returned home. As a grateful nation, let us show our appreciation by honoring all our veterans and working to ensure the promise of America is within the reach of all who have protected it. Thank you.
Hello and good morning. My name is Caleb Larson, and I'm a senior here at East Noble. This year, the East Noble freshmen and sophomore students participated in the 1079 Birch Show Challenge called The Big Thank You. The Birch Show mission is to send a handwritten letter to every U.S. soldier throughout the world. Last week, East Noble was responsible for dropping off over 200 letters to the Birch Show. And this week, it was announced that at least one letter was sent in from 44 out of the 50 United States. It was also announced that the Birch Show mission was accomplished. Every single United States soldier will receive a handwritten letter before Thanksgiving. We would now like to share one of our own students' letters for the veterans present today. Dear American soldier, thank you. Thank you for your service. Your honor and possible ultimate sacrifice is greatly honored and thanked, not just by me, but by everyone who lives in this great country that you lay your life on the line to protect. I hope you get home soon. It's about Halloween, followed by Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. And it would be awesome if you and every other soldier could be home for the holidays. But I know that most won't be able to come home for probably any of them. Just that on those days, I will be thinking about you and everyone overseas protecting us so that we can celebrate. If you are by any chance from Kendall, Indiana, then you would be happy because here, our East Noble Knights football team is undefeated and we are a force to be reckoned with. Most do not know what kind of anxiety you feel and how scared your family is for you, but I know the feeling. My dad was recently medically discharged from the Army. He spent most of my life in the Army, and even though it was only his 10th year, he was nowhere near done, as he has always told me. He planned on having a 20-year military career, but unfortunately it was cut short by a bad jump. See, my dad was an infantry airborne, and he jumped out of planes into combat. But while he was at base during a practice jump, the soldier who was 2 men in front of him tripped. My father and another soldier were helping him up, and they were all sucked out of the plane. The other 2 men reached the ground safely, but my dad hit the side of the plane and woke up on the ground. After that, he had 2 back surgeries and 1 neck surgery. Since then, he's been dealing with the VA, and he's had to go through rehab. I am very thankful he was okay, because God only knows what would have happened had his parachute not deployed. My uncle was also in the Marines for 10 years, and is now a correctional officer for convicts. My great-grandfather served in the infantry in World War II and received the Medal of Honor and Purple Heart for his heroic actions. My other great-grandfather served in the Navy in World War II, and my grandfather served in Vietnam. He also received the Medal of Honor for his actions. I now have a sense of urgency to follow in their footsteps. For the past month, I've been reading on the USMC webpage and getting any and all information about the Marines in order to get the knowledge to prepare me to join the Marines. To sum this letter up now, I wish the best of luck to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you and every other man and woman return home safely. Be safe while you're over there. I hope you like this letter and it makes you feel closer to home. Sincerely, an East Noble High School freshman. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome. We would like to sing this song in honor of the children in war-torn countries whom U.S. soldiers have gone to fight for.
Shadow of an unknown room. some of you are just glad to get out of class. But the real reason why we take this time out of class is to acknowledge the sacrifices that veterans have made for all of us. It is time to realize that our freedom is not something to take for granted. It is all due to our veterans. Now I'm going to tell you why Veterans Day is so important to this country. When Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner almost 200 years ago, he called America the land of the free and the home of the brave. Those words are as true today as they were then. Throughout this nation's history, America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen have bravely answered the call to defend our freedom, to aid our friends and allies, and to turn back aggressors. We can never fully repay our debt of gratitude to the more than 650,000 American service members who died in battle, or the 1.4 million who were wounded. We can, however, recognize and thank the 25 million veterans living today. These words are inscribed on the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C. Our nation honors her sons and daughters who answered the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met. Those words apply equally to many of our World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, and Gulf War veterans. They apply to today's active duty service members, tomorrow's veterans, who are helping to maintain peace throughout the world. Today, it is our privilege to say thank you to all the American veterans, to let them know that we appreciate them for their service and honor them for their sacrifices. The price of freedom is high. We cannot afford to forget those who are willing to pay it. Today, we celebrate America's veterans for keeping this nation the land of the free and the home of the brave. Now I will be reading a poem entitled Veterans Day by Cheryl Dodson. On Veterans Day, we honor all who answered to a service call. Soldiers young and soldiers old fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others have died, and all above them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and all of our rights. They fought through many days and nights. And though we may not know each name, we thank all veterans just the same.
Now the East Noble Advanced Concert Band will be playing the Armed Forces Salute. Servicemen and women, if you could please stand while your service song is being played, that would be great.
Thank
the prairie, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home's sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America. God bless America. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Seven years after President Dwight D. Eisenhower officially changed Armistice Day to Veterans Day, President John F. Kennedy, like Ike, a World War II veteran, gave his first Veterans Day address at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. The following are a few excerpts from his speech. I do not believe that any nation in the history of the world has buried its soldiers further from its native soil than we Americans, or buried them closer to the towns in which they grew up. We celebrate this Veterans Day for a very few minutes, a few seconds of silence, and then this country's life goes on. But I think it most appropriate that we recall on this occasion, and on every other moment when we are faced with great responsibilities, the contribution and the sacrifice which so many men and their families have made in order to permit this country to now occupy its present position of responsibility and freedom, and in order to permit us to gather here together. Bruce Catton, after totaling the casualties which took place in the Battle of Antietam, not so very far from this cemetery, when he looked at statistics which showed that in the short space of a few minutes, whole regiments lost 50 to 75% of their numbers, then wrote that life perhaps is not the most precious gift of all, that men died for the possession of a few feet of corn or a rocky hill, or for almost nothing at all. But, in a very larger sense, they died that this country might be permitted to go on, and that it might permit to be fulfilled the great hopes of its founders. In a world tormented by tension and the possibilities of conflict, we meet in a quiet commemoration of a historic day of peace. In an age that threatens the survival of freedom, we join together to honor those who made our freedom possible. The resolution of the Congress, which first proclaimed Armistice Day, described November 11, 1918, as the end of the most destructive, sanguinary, and far-reaching war in the history of human annals. That resolution expressed the hope that the First World War would be, in truth, the war to end all wars. It suggested that those men who had died had therefore not given their lives in vain. It is a tragic fact that these hopes have not been fulfilled, that wars still more destructive and still more sanguinary followed, that man's capacity to devise new ways of killing his fellow men had far outstripped his capacity to live in peace with soon to promise the living an end to organized death. But let us not forget that November 11th, 1918 signified a beginning as well as an end. The purpose of all war, said Augustine, is peace. The First World War produced man's first great effort in recent times to solve by international cooperation the problems of war. That experiment continues in our present day. Still imperfect, still short of its responsibilities, but it does offer hope that someday nations can live in harmony. For our part, we shall achieve that peace only with patience and perseverance and courage. The patience and perseverance necessary to work with allies of diverse interests but common goals. The courage necessary over a long time to overcome the adversity skilled in the arts of harassment and obstruction. There is no way to maintain the frontiers of freedom without cost and commitment and risk. There is no swift and easy path to peace in our generation. No man who witnessed the tragedies of the last war, no man who can imagine the unimaginable possibilities of the next war, can advocate war out of irritability or frustration or impatience. But let no nation confuse our perseverance and patience with fear of war or unwillingness to meet our responsibilities. In the end, the only way to maintain the peace is to be prepared in the final extreme to fight for our country and to mean it. As a nation, we have little capacity for deception. We can convince friend and foe alike that we are in earnest about the defense of freedom only if we are in earnest. And I can assure the world that we are. Thank you.
We are honored that many of our local veterans have taken time out of their schedules to join us this morning for our Veterans Day celebration. Most, if not all, of these veterans are seated on the chairs in front of you. I would like to ask these veterans if they would stand at this time. Students and staff, would you join me as we let these veterans know how much we appreciate not only their attendance today, but their service for our country.
I'll start out by telling you a little bit about the history of how it got started.
about this new memorial and asking them if they plan to go see it. Most of them said, I have no way to get there. I can't do that. So Earl was a private pilot as well and retired from the Air Force. And so he and a few other people got together who were also pilots, and an inaugural honor flight was made in May of 2005 with 12 veterans from Springfield, Ohio. So then in February of 06, the Honor Flight Network was founded by Earl, which now consists of a network of 110 hubs in 41 states, and we have 3 hubs now in Indiana. We have Fort Wayne, we have Lafayette, and we have Indianapolis. We were the first in the state, and many of our vets came up from Indianapolis or over from Lafayette to go with us, but they have taken some of our waiting list away, which is good because we were overwhelmed. So as of November of a year ago, the Honor Flight Network has flown over 117,000 veterans to see the memorial through the Honor Flight Network. And during 2013, nearly 19,000 vets were flown to see their memorial just in that year alone. Honor Flight Northeast Indiana was conceived in 2007 by a lady by the name of Laura Perico. She attended an Honor Flight summit. Her primary goal was to get her father, who was a World War II vet, to go see that memorial. So she went to this meeting to find out what she could do to get that done. So she was the mover and the shaker of Honor Flight Northeast Indiana. And in March of 2008, a 5-member board was formed and began planning and fundraising. And they got enough money together to make an inaugural flight in May 13th of the Air Guard does a water salute as we are taxiing out on the runway. We receive that same water salute when we arrive at Reagan Airport. And we do incidentally fly into Reagan because it's much closer for us to the memorials than the other airports in Washington. We have flown into Dulles before and also Baltimore. However, those are an hour and 15-minute bus ride to the memorials. We try to stay on schedule. Many times, one of our favorite sayings that one of our board members come up with is that our schedule is predictably unpredictable. And we have interruptions many times. In fact, on October 1 when we were there, everything was going fine until we found out that Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israel was in town and he messed up traffic all day long. So every place we went, we were delayed or we couldn't get there or there were complications. So we arrived at Reagan around 9:30 in the morning. After an hour, we go to the World War II Memorial first. After an hour or so, we load the buses and do a drive around of the city of Washington while we have a box lunch. And our next stops are at the Korean, Lincoln, and Vietnam memorials, which are all adjacent to each other, so we can do that in one stop. And we spend an hour or so there, and then we just do a drive around to the Iwo Jima Memorial. My apologies, Mayor. We don't get out there because the steps there are not user-friendly to our veterans. So we do a drive around, in fact, we do it twice. So we do get to see that memorial, we just don't get out to stop. So after that, we go to the World War II Women's Memorial. We frequently have women veterans on board. I think we had 4 on our last flight, and there's a nice portfolio of their service prepared for each one of those ladies. And so that's an enjoyable stop. It's a very wonderful memorial. It's right outside Arlington. So then we go into Arlington for changing of the guard. Right across from where we stop our buses is the grave site of Audie Murphy. And all of you World War II veterans at least know that Audie Murphy was the most decorated World War II veteran. And his grave site is right across from where we get off the buses. We then go into Arlington for changing in the guard at Tombs of the Unknown. And for the first time on this last flight, we did a wreath-laying ceremony. They need a lot of notice to get on the schedule for that. We don't usually have that much time to get on their schedule, but we did on this last one. So that was a first for us. And Dennis Covert, the Vietnam vet I discussed earlier,
get to showcase our talent. This is possible, and I want to draw a little bit of attention to Mr. Ricky for organizing everything that we've got going on today. This concludes our ceremony. I would like to continue the tradition of students before you return to your first period class.